Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Season 2 of Meat for the Grinder, our series dedicated to Necromunda Dark Uprising Battle Reports. Meat for the Grinder is a Necromunda campaign set in the final days of Hive Arcos, where Chaos, Xenos, and Order clash for control of a collapsing Hive City. And on today's episode for Battle Report number 9, my two friends Scream the Emo and Iron Major will be throwing it down in a hunt them down scenario to the death. My friend Scream the Emo is bringing the red faction, the Genestealer Cults, while Iron Major is bringing the Deff Watch of the Orks. So both these gangs, of course, have been suffering kind of bit during our campaign so far. Scream the Emo lost his very first battle report, and unfortunately for Iron Major, he actually lost 3 of his battle reports he's actually fought in so far. So both these gangs are struggling just a little bit in our campaign. However, that being said though, they are throwing it down in this scenario. The Genestealer Cults will try to escape from the Deff Watch as they run through an endless tunnel of death and destruction in the depths of the Zor Mortalis. Now, because this video is a little bit longer, because it is a battle report, I do have timestamps in the description box down below, so that way you can click and navigate to the battle part of the battle report that interests you the most. So that being said, let's go and talk about exactly what my friends are bringing by bringing the Ork as well as the Genestealer Cult rosters. So let's get that on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So the scenario rule for this one is hunt them down. In this scenario, Scream the Emo will be the defender, while my friend Iron Major will be the attacker in this scenario. For the defender, they start with D3 plus 3 randomly chosen fighters to actually start their crew, while the attacker, of course, uses custom selection method for their crew. However, they don't actually deploy at the very beginning of the battlefield, and the reason why is because the Genestealer Cultists of the Red Faction are trying to escape the battlefield. Pretty much what ends up happening is that the Zor Mortalis battlefield they're fighting on, which is about 2 tiles wide and 3 tiles long, is pretty much like a rolling road scenario except from the Ashways, except that's down in the Underhive. Pretty much what's going to happen is that the Genestealer Cultists have to survive 9 rounds by trying to make their way directly to the other side of the tunnel and try to escape. And every single time they make it to the far edge of the table, 2 more tiles will be put on the tabletop, and they keep on going until 9 rounds have pretty much been used up. Now, as for Iron Major, his gang will actually deploy on the second round. He actually deploys D3 plus 3 randomly chosen fighters. And what ends up happening is that at the end of each end phase, he gets D3 additional fighters from his roster until all the fighters have been deployed. So because of that, they'll game will last 9 rounds until someone is only one gang left is on the tabletop, or if the Genestealer Cultists manage to make it to the end by surviving all 9 rounds. If the Genestealer Cultists should make it all the way to the end of the board, the last 2 tiles on the left-hand side will disappear. Whoever fighters are on that actually go out of action, for the defender anyways. For the attacker, of course, they just reshuffle them up forward. Now for rewards on this one, each fighter who took part in the battle report earns 1 point of experience point, and the attacking fighter also takes an additional experience point for each enemy fighter they take out of action. Plus 8 defending fighters that make it to the end of the battlefield by the end of the game also earns an additional experience point as well. As for reputation, the victorious gang also earns D3 points reputation as well. Unfortunately, there are no credit rewards for this scenario. It's just all about survival. And now that we're done talking about the scenario rules, let's talk about battle plans as well as tactics. So here's an overview shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my friends are playing on a 2x3 table of Zone Mortalis tiles. As you can see on the left-hand side, Screaming Emu has deployed his red faction, and pretty much his plan is to cut across the table as quickly as possible to get to the far right-hand side. Now, if his fighters make it to the far right-hand side of the battlefield, the last 2 tiles on the left-hand side will be removed, and 2 more tiles will be added to the right-hand side to kind of create like a rolling road effect, except using Zone Mortalis tiles. This goes on for 9 rounds, of course, until the red faction actually manages to survive all 9 rounds. At the same time, of course, the hunters from the Venators will also deploy on the back edge on the left-hand side when they're starting around 2. But from that point onward, they can actually deploy anywhere on any table edge, so long as they're within 8 inches of another friendly fighter, to represent the fact that these guys are kind of jumping out of the woodwork and just attacking people because the Genestealers actually entered the Orks' domain for the most part. So for the battle plan on this one, it's actually pretty simple. My buddy Screaming Emu is just going to try to race across the board, and my friend Iron Mage is going to try to stop him by killing as many Genestealer Cultists as possible. So, starting out with deployment for the red faction, as you can see, his entire gang is lined up on the back edge here. So, starting with the bottom, we have Vendor Creel, who's the specialist arm of the Long Last. We also have the Holland the Shipbreaker, which is a hybrid acolyte. It's got a heavy stubber as well. And if you're wondering who that is right above him, that's actually a pure strain Genestealer, the Xenos abomination from the Book of Ruin. And the reason why that is the case is because, unfortunately, for Scream with Emo, he is definitely the underdog in this battle report. He's only got, I think about it, 600 credit difference between his gang as well as Iron Major. So, because of that, he does get a house agent to help him out to kind of balance him out a little bit, so he decided to go with the pure strain Genestealer. That thing's got a chitinous hide, razor sharp claws, venomous bite, bio booster, as well as photo goggles, respirator. It's got the dodge, evade, nerves of steel, as well as random blow skills. So this thing is kitted out to kill. It's got a 6-inch movement, 4+ weapon skill, 4 strength, 5 toughness, 4 wounds, 3 initiative, 4 attacks, 7 leadership, 4 cool, 5 willpower, as well as 10 intelligence. And make up the rest of his deployment. Starting from the bottom, working our way up, we have Gyrus and Stern, the Cult Adept, who's also got his little lucky, his little familiar with him, Roar, as well. Right next to him, of course, is another character named Mycon, who's a neophyte hybrid arm with the autogun. Next to him is Isaac Black, who's an aberrant with a chain sword as well as a shockwave. And then finally, on the very top, of course, we have the Nightmare That Stalks, which is a Sumpbeast. It's got ferocious jaws, multiple legs, lashing tail, scaly hide. It's also got the Underhive Horror, Unstoppable, Fearsome, True Grit, and Clamber skills. And it also has an old battle wound, but it manages to pass its battle wound test so that we can participate in this battle report. And lastly, off to the side are the Deff Watch, which is, of course, the Ork gang for this entire, from Iron Major's entire gang. He's able to use all of his fighters this time around to actually have them show up on the battlefield because they're going to be hunting down the Genestealer Cultists one by one. So now that we're done talking about deployment, let's go directly to the top at turn number 1. So we go directly to the top at turn number 1. The Genestealer Cult automatically gets the initiative on this one because they're the only ones on the tabletop right now. For my buddy Iron Major, he will not be able to deploy his fighters until the start of turn number 2. So with that being said, let's talk about exactly what my friend Scheme of the Emo does with his forces. So starting at the bottom half of the tabletop, Scream of the Emo knows that he's going to be pursued by the hunters here in a second, and the reason why is because at the start of round number 2, the Orks show up on the back trailing edge of the tabletop, the very same deployment area that Scream of the Emo set up. So what he decided to do is take Holland the Shipbreaker as well as Vendor Creel. Holland the Shipbreaker also has his familiar with him, which his name is Snarl. Those guys do a move action all the way directly towards that little barricade there so that they can take cover, and planning on turning around and opening fire directly on the Orks as they show up. Same thing with Vendor Creel. Meanwhile, the Pure Strain Genestealer actually moves and button hooks to the right hand side right behind that wall, so that way when the Orks do show up in the next turn, but that way my buddy Scream can then send that Pure Strain Genestealer into close combat and just tear people apart in close combat as well. Meanwhile, on the top half of the tabletop, Screaming Emo does exactly the same thing. He sends Gyrus and Starn as well as Mycon, as well as Gyrus and Starn's familiar Roar. They do move activations right behind that barricade, and they turn 180 degrees around so that they can fight anybody that's coming after them. Same thing with Isaac Black as well as the Nightmare That Stalks. They both move up, do double moves forward directly behind that barricade as well, and they also turn 180 degrees, that way they can attack any Orks that decide to come after them at the start of the next turn. So that being said, that takes directly the end phase of turn number 1. Here's overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, Scream of the Emo has deployed his forces kind of like in the middle of the first row of tiles, and the reason why is because he plans on actually standing his ground and fighting, which does make sense because the last thing you want to do is have these orcs chase you across the entirety of the map. He's actually going to stand his ground and try to take those guys out instead of actually trying to run away from them, which is actually a pretty bold move. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both of my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 2, and my friend Scream of the Emo does manage to get the initiative on this one, so the Genestealer Cults will be going first in this battle report. As you can see on the far left-hand side, Iron Major's deployed his first D3+3 fighters they randomly picked from his roster to give pursuit to go after the Genestealer Cultists. Alright, so let's talk about the fighters that end up showing up on the tabletop. On the bottom left-hand side of the tabletop, we have Kazi the Loom, which is a hunter's armor with a two-handed axe, as well as mesh armor, as well as a stub gun. And right next to him is the champion, Garad, the face biter. That guy's actually, Eggcracker is his name. He's a hunt champion. He's got mesh armor, got a forged cloak, as well as a heavy rock cutter, as well as auto pistol, as well as photo goggles, and he also has the rain of blow skills. And on the top half of the battlefield, at the very bottom, we have MacBoy Mad Eye, who is a hunt champion armed with mesh armor. He's also got a plasma gun and a stub gun. He's also got the Nerves of Steel skill. Right next to him on the top is Krogskull Draka, which is the hunt leader of this gang. He's got mesh armor, gunner forged cloak, auto pistol with a hand flamer combo weapon. He's got a servo claw as well as photo goggles. He's also got the commanding presence skill as well. And very top of him is Snick Rat Track Eye, which is a hunter's got mesh armor, a long run with infrasight, as well as an auto pistol. So now that we're done talking about Iron Major's deployment, let's talk about my friend Scream of the Emo's very first set of activations. So for his very first set of activations, my friend Scream of the Emo decides to select Garrison Star and his Cult Adept, and it does a group activation with both Isak Black as well as with the Nightmare that stalks. And the first thing it does, of course, is take a double action to use a willpower test, which he successfully passed in order to launch his very first weird power directly at Isak Black. By conjuring the willpower of the warp, he managed to cast a Zealot right directly onto Isak Black, which means that Isak Black gets to reroll ones in close combat when he actually gets to activate next. And speaking of activations, we continue on to the rest of the activations for the rest of the fighters. So first, the Nightmare that stalks. The Nightmare starts charged directly into Krogskull Draka, which actually makes sense because this thing is an absolute nightmare in close combat. On the charge, it has 3 attacks, needing +4 to hit as well as 4+ to wound, using its ferocious jaws as well as its lashing tail. Both those attacks, of course, have strength 4 attacks with -1 AP, as well as causing 1 damage as well. And at the same time, Krogskull Draka, of course, will attack back. He has 4 attacks base. He's got 3 attacks coming from his servo claws, which is going to cost him 3 up to hit as well as 3 up to wound, causing 2 damage every single time. And he's also got his auto pistol attack as well, which is 3+ to hit as well as 5+ to wound, causing 1 damage. Unfortunately, when it's all said and done, the Nightmare that stalks pretty much floated its roles, managed to put only 1 wound on the Krogskull Draka. Meanwhile, Krogskull Draka managed to put 2 wounds directly onto the Nightmare that stalks, so unfortunately, it's pretty much kind of stacking up against Scream of the Emo in this combat. And the very last little bit of the combat involves Isak Black, who managed to successfully charge directly into MechBoy Mad Eye. They both throw blows, but unfortunately, Isak Black fails to wound with his attack, and MechBoy Mad Eye also fails to hit. So because of that, these fighters are still engaged with one another in close combat. So because that, we go directly to Iron Major, decides to do a group activation with Headcracker, his hunt champion, who also does a group activation with Kazi the Loom. But before they get a chance to actually do anything, my friend Scream of the Emo interrupts their activation using Overwatch from Hall and the Shipbreaker. Overwatch, of course, allows you to interrupt enemy activations, and he decides to open fire with his heavy stub at nearly point-blank range directly towards Garad Headcracker. Unfortunately, though, Hall and the Shipbreaker actually misses his shot, rolled a 1 in order to hit, so because of that, those orcs are perfectly fine. So starting with Garad Headcracker, he goes directly and declares a charge into the Pure Strange. Genestealer managed to get that charge off no problem. He gets 3 attacks base with 3+ to hit as well as 2+ to wound. He's also got -4 AP for his heavy rock cutter that also causes 3 damage as well. Unfortunately for Scream of the Emo, his Pure Strange Genestealer is actually KO'd right at the start of the battle report. Garad Headcracker with that huge rock cutter just doesn't stand a chance against that kind of firepower. So because of that, the Genestealer, of course, does go out of action as well, and also earns some additional experience points for Garad Headcracker. And finishing up the last of his group activation, Kazi the Loom, of course, does try to charge directly into Vendor Creel, but unfortunately, though, he misses his target by about 1.5 inches, just wasn't able to get the clearance to go through. Now, he does have a double-handed axe, so we thought that double-handed axe actually had versatile trait, but actually, it didn't. So because that, Kazi the Loom just kind of wasted his action by closing the distance between them. So that being said, we go directly to Scream of the Emo, who decides to activate Mycon. Mycon is going to do a simple action to move up forward, and another basic action to turn around and open fire with his auto gun. As you can see, Mycon goes directly to the bank of the flooded section of the tunnel, turns 180 degrees, and opens fire directly at Snick Rat Track Eye, which is the orc armed with the long rifle. Now with this auto gun, he is going to need a 4 up to hit as well as a 4 up to wound in order to hit Snick Rat Track Eye. And he does manage to hit the Ork. Unfortunately, though, he does fail to wound him, so because that Snick Rat Track guy is currently laying on the ground, and he is currently pinned. So not to be outdone by Puny Humi, who's got an alien inside of his head, Snick Rat Track guy does a basic action get back on his feet again, and another basic action open fire with his long rifle directly at Mycon. Unfortunately for Iron Major, though, he flubbed his rolls because he did miss the shot, so no harm, no foul at this point. Going back to Scream of the Emo, he did decide to activate his specialist, Vener Creel. He's going to do a simple action move up forward and a basic action open fire with his long glass. Vener Creel does move up his normal moon allowance and turns 180 degrees around orbital fire with his long glass directly at those orcs. With that long glass, he is going to require a 4-up to hit as well as a 4-up to wound because these orcs are all toughness 4. At the same time, his long glass will cause 1 damage. Now, my friend Scream does manage to stick the landing with the shot directly into Grodd Headcracker, managed to hit him, but unfortunately, though, he fails to wound him. So because of that, Grodd Headcracker is perfectly fine. He's just currently pinned. Meanwhile, we go back directly to the top of the tabletop where Krogskull Draka goes next. He tries to throw his attacks directly into the Nightmare that stalks, but unfortunately, though, he failed to hit with his close combat attacks, so nothing much happened there. And the Nightmare that stalks returned attacks back at Krogskull Draka, but was able to wound him, unfortunately. Did manage to hit him a couple of times, but failed to go through that high strength, high toughness of 4, so because of that, he is perfectly fine. The same thing ended up pretty much happening down below with Mechboy Mad Eye as well as Isak Black. They go again, once again with another round of close combat, but both of them kind of whiff, so nothing much really happens there. So with that takes us directly to the end phase, and here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, a lot of fighting taking place on the left-hand side. Unfortunately for my friend Scream of the Emo, though, he did try to launch a surprise attack directly on the Orcs that are chasing him. Unfortunately, though, his attack was pretty much blunted by the Orcs. His Pure Strange Steel Sealer got taken out during that turn. The Nightmare of the Socks, of course, is being tied down by Krogskull Draka. None of his shooting elements are managing to wound the Orcs, so things are not looking really good right now for my buddy Scream of the Emo. And to make things actually worse, more Orcs will be coming on the tabletop. In fact, D3 of them will be arriving now. One of the Orcs that does show up, of course, is Zogwarp, the World Killer. He is a hunt champion. He's got mesh armor as well as a Gutter Forged cloak, as well as packing a chain glaive. He's also got an auto pistol for backup weapon, and he's also got photo goggles and a bioscanner, and also has the Rain of Blow skill. And as you can see here, he pops up 8 inches away from right behind Vener Creel, and it looks like he's about to ready to chop this guy down using his chain glaive. And Iron Major managed to get 2 of his Orcs to show up on the table, so right on the directly in the neutral deployment zone is Urlak, the Maniac, who's a hunt champion. He's got mesh armor as well as a Gutter Forged cloak. He's also packing a combo weapon, which is a combination of auto gun as well as flamer. He's also got an auto pistol, photo goggles, as well as a Nerves of Steel skill, and he pops up right next to Mechboy Mad Eye. And that pretty much makes the deployment for these fighters. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and my friends roll off for prayer on this one, and the Orcs managed to secure it this time around, so my buddy Iron Major will be going first for turn number 3. So his very first activation, Iron Major decides to activate Urlak the Maniac, who does a group activation with Mechboy Mad Eye. So the first thing that Urlak the Maniac's going to do is going to actually move up his normal moon allowance and then take a basic action, open fire with the flame of his combo weapon directly into Garrison Starn. As you can see, he moves up his normal moon allowance, opens fire with a jet stream of flame directly onto the Cult Adept, but unfortunately for my friend Iron Major, though, he is perfectly fine. And the reason why is because Scream of the Emo does have a familiar with that fighter named Roar. He does have to take a willpower test, and he actually ignores the hits. Because of that, the flamer does nothing, absolutely nothing against Garrison Starn. So that part was pretty crazy. So finishing up the rest of his group activation, we then go to Mechboy Mad Eye, and Mechboy Mad Eye realized that he can't really stand toe-to-toe with an Aberrant all that well. So because of that, he decides to do a basic action in order to retreat back. Managed to pass his initiative test to slip outside of close combat range from Isak Black. Now unfortunately for Isak Black, though, he is an Aberrant, which means he's got an initiative of 5. So unfortunately for Scream of the Emo, he did fail his initiative test, so because of that, Mechboy Mad Eye was able to retreat without taking any damage. So as you can see, Mechboy Mad Eye, I think, goes back 3 inches, I believe, because he basically slips out of the grasp of Isak Black, and then of course he does another basic action, open fire with his plasma gun at near point blank range directly against Isak Black. He gets +1 to hit, basically as long as he doesn't roll a 1, he's perfectly fine. He needs a 3-up to wound with that plasma gun, firing at the low setting. It's also going to have -1 AP as well as cause 2 damage with rapid fire. Managed to fire 1 shot with that plasma gun directly into Isak Black, and also managed to put him down as well with a serious injury as well as a flesh wound. So Isak Black is now laying on the ground. He is currently bleeding out. He's also 1 less toughness, which is a very precarious spot for him to be in because he's right near all these different Orcs. All it's going to take is 1 Orc to charge directly into him, and he'll be able to take Isak Black with a coup de grace. So going back to Scream of the Emo, he decides to activate the Nightmare that stalks first by having his attacks directly against Corkscroll Draka. Unfortunately for Scream of the Emo though, the Nightmare that stalk kind of very much whipped his blows for the most part, so because of that, not much really happened there, all things considered. However, Corkscroll Draka though gets to do reaction attacks. He gets 3 attacks with Cervical Claws, needing 3 up to hit, as well as 3 up to wound with 2 damage apiece. He's also got 1 token auto pistol attack, which is 3+ hit, as well as 5+ the wound, and that only causes 1 damage as well. Unfortunately for Scream of the Emo, Corkscroll Draka does manage to stick the landing on his close combat attacks this time. Managed to put the Nightmare that stalks out of action. I think he managed to put 4 wounds directly onto this creature as well. When it came up for the injury, he rolled out of action, and he rolled it out cold. So because of the Nightmare that stalks will not be able to participate in this battle report, but he'll make a full recovery, no problem. And because Corkscroll Draka does have the Commanding Presence ability, he can activate a 3rd fighter if he wishes, and this time he activates Snick Rat Track Eye, which is the Hunter armed with the long rifle, and that guy of course declares a charge directly onto Isak Black. The Ork Sniper, of course, bum rushes Isak Black, puts the barrel of his long rifle directly against the Aberrate's head and pulls the trigger, and boom, that's all she freaking wrote. Isak Black, of course, goes out of action at the same time for his lasting injury, rolls a critical injury, so because of that, Scream of the Emo will need to take his Aberrate and put him on a medical escort mission, otherwise this guy will die if he doesn't get any medical attentions afterwards. So to finish up the rest of his group activation, Corkscroll Draka, of course, declares a charge against Garrison Star, managed to stick the landing directly into him, of course, using his 3 servo claw attacks, as well as his 1 additional auto pistol attack directly into Garrison Star. As you can imagine, the Commando War Boss has no problem putting the last bit of hurt directly onto Garrison Star, put him out of action as well. Now, luckily for my friend Scream of the Emo, when he rolled for his lasting injuries, rolled an out cold result, so because that Garrison Star will make a full recovery with no harm and no foul. So with that, we go back to Scream of the Emo, who decides to activate Holland the Shipbreaker next. His hybrid alkali, who's carrying a heavy stubber, decides to open fire point blank range directly into Kazi the Loon, needing a 3 up to hit as well as a 3 up to wound with -1 AP, and also causing 1 damage. Unfortunately for Scream of the Emo though, he did manage to hit him, but he failed to wound him, and to make matters worse, he also suffers an ammo roll on that one as well. So just like that, my buddy Scream of the Emo is facing a really hard time with this gang currently. And because things are going so swimmingly right now for my buddy Scream of the Emo, Iron the Major decides to activate Zogwarp the World Killer. And the reason why he's able to do that is because he decides to just do 2 simple actions by fighting with his Chainglaive. The reason why is because he has a rain of blow skill. So he gets 2 attacks at +3 to hit for his weapon skill, as well as +2 to wound with that Chainglaive with -2 AP and causing 2 damage at exactly the same time. And of course, he has no problem whatsoever putting Vinegar down, managed to put that guy out of action as well. But to add a little bit of good news to a really bad series of events, Vinegar does roll an out cold result, so because that Vinegar will of course make a total recovery, no harm, no foul. Unfortunately for my buddy Scream of the Emo, not for Scream of the Emo, unfortunately for my friend Iron Major though, he does make a rules mistake here. He only used Rain of Blows in order to take out Vinegar. He still had 1 more action left. He could have easily moved up Zogwarp the World Killer, or actually have him take a basic action to open fire with his sidearm, but unfortunately he forgot that he'd had that additional action on him, so nothing much really happens for the rest of that activation. So my buddy Scream of the Emo, seeing the writing on the wall, decides that basically running away is probably a better idea than standing his ground, so he activates Mekon, who just does a move activation directly to the right hand side of the battlefield. As you can see, Mekon uses both his moon allows to go directly towards the center of the tabletop, right down the straightaway, and he's making his way to the other edge of the table, because hopefully if he can try to outrun these orcs, because the orcs aren't very fast, he might be able to survive it all the way to the end of the scenario. So, feeling upset about the situation, Iron Major decides to activate Grod Eggcracker, gets back on, does a simple action, get back on his feet again to escape being pinned. He does try to open fire with his auto pistol, but unfortunately for Iron Major though, he fails to hit because Grod Headcracker is actually more of a fighter, not really a shooter. And the exact same thing happens to Kazi the Loon as well. He gets back on his feet and tries to open fire with his stub gun, but unfortunately though, he fails to hit as well because Kazi the Loon is more of a close combat fighter and not really much of a shooter as well. And with that, that takes us directly to the end phase. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, the red faction are dropping like flies, one by one. There's a whole tidal wave of orcs heading directly towards Mekon. Mekon himself is located directly smack dab in the middle of the tabletop, and he's going to try to make his way directly to the right-hand side and try to survive the orcs for as long as possible. But before we can go directly to the next turn, Iron Major, of course, gets to play D3 fighters onto the tabletop. He rolls a D6, actually rolls a 6, so because that 3 of his fighters also show up. So on the very top of the table, that character's name is Grizzguts Brew Guzzler, who's a hunter armed with mesh armor, as well as a last pistol with a hotshot last pack. He's got a sword, as well as a Medicaid kit, as well as photo goggles. And on the bottom of the table, 2 more orcs show up. On the left-hand side, that character's name is Gitzog the Shiv. He is a hunter's armed with mesh armor, paired swords, frag grenades, as well as photo goggles. And on the right-hand side, that is the Doom Rider, which is a hunter who's got mesh armor, auto pistol, flail, as well as incendiary charges. He's also got a grapnel launcher as well. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and my friends roll out for initiative, and my friend Screaming the Emo managed to get the initiative on this one, so he will be going first in this turn. For his very first activation, he decides to activate Mycon, which is his fighter who's about halfway down the tabletop. Actually decides to have him make a move directly to the right-hand side of the tabletop in order to escape the wrath of orcs that are chasing after him. And as you can see, Mycon actually does foam far up 8 inches, lands kind of in the middle of the last third row of tiles. All he has to do, of course, is just travel a little bit further directly towards the edge, and he'll be able to replace the back trailing edge of tiles and move those tiles to the front edge instead, and basically all those orcs, of course, will be taken off the tabletop if he's able to do so. So for Iron Major's very first activation, is a group activation with Zogwarp the World Killer, who also activates Gitzog the Shiv as well, and both those guys declare charges against Holland the Shipbreaker. Gitzog the Shiv actually goes base-to-base contact with Holland the Shipbreaker, while Zogwarp the World Killer, of course, hangs back a little bit, so that way he can use the versatile trait of his Chain Glaive. Gitzog the Shiv, of course, gets 3 attacks on the charge, with 2+ to hit in close combat, with a 4+ to wound, causing 1 damage for each of his attacks. And unfortunately for Scream of the Emo, Holland the Shipbreaker is sliced up like julienne French fries because Gitzog the Shiv managed to put him out of action. At the same time, when it comes for his lasting injury, will Convalescence. So because that Holland the Shipbreaker will not be able to take any post-battle actions for this scenario, but he will make a full recovery, so no harm, no foul. And with, of course, Holland the Shipbreaker being put out of action, there are no more Genestealer Cultists on the battlefield, so the rest of the turn is dedicated to Iron Major. Iron Major does a group activation with Grod the Edkraka as well as Kaz the Loon. Both those guys, of course, do move actions directly on the bottom of the table to try to catch up with Mycon. The Doom Rider also gives pursuit by using his grapnel launcher, using a double action to travel 12 inches directly behind Mycon. As you can see, definitely close the distance about, I think it's about either 4 or 5 inches right behind Mycon, so he is catching up to him pretty quick. Grizzguts Brute Guzzler, the fighter who's armed with a last pistol, as well as Krogskull Draka, also activate it forward. Grizzguts Brute Guzzler actually moves up right behind Mycon. At the same time, Krogskull Draka also moves up as fast as he can through that river system, trying to catch up the rest of the fighters going through the flooded section of the board. Arlak the Maniac, as well as Mechboy Mad Eye, also trying to catch up as quick as they can, doing both doing move actions directly across the battlefield in order to close the distance towards Mycon. And for his very last activation, Iron Major decides to activate Snickrat Track Guy, who's his underarm with a long rifle. He actually has him take a basic action to aim with his long rifle, which also has an infrared sight as well. So because that Snickrat Track Guy actually has to hit a roll up in order to hit the target of Mycon, all he has to do is not roll a 1. He also got 3+ to wound because of strength for attack with -1 AP as well as 1 damage. Could potentially go up to 2 damage if knockback is rolled. And in the end, he's able to hit Mycon. Not only does he manage to hit Mycon as well, also managed to put a serious injury on him because of knockback. Mycon, of course, goes crashing to the ground face down. He is currently bleeding out, and to make matters worse, he also rolls a flesh wound, which means -1 to his toughness, making him toughness only 2, which is a really spot for this fighter to be in because all it takes is one fighter to charge into him, and they can take him out with a coup de grace. And with that, takes us directly to the end phase. As you can see, the orcs are swarming across the tabletop going after Mycon as well. To make matters worse for my buddy Scream of the Emo, when he rolls up for his recovery roll, he rolls a serious injury for Mycon still. So Mycon is still laying on the ground, and he is still bleeding out. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 5, and my friend Iron Major wins the priority on this one, so he will be going first for this turn. And the very first thing he does, of course, is declare a charge. For his very first activation, he activates the Doom Rider, who of course is going to take a double action to charge directly into the fallen form of Mycon, which is laying down in front of him, currently bleeding on the cold decking. The Doom Rider, of course, has no problem sticking the landing on the charge, and he manages to finish off Mycon with a coup de grace, putting him directly out of action. Lucky for my buddy Scream of the Emo, though, when he rolled up for his lasting injury, he rolled out cold, so all things considered, all of his fighters are actually making full recoveries with no lasting injuries, except for Isak Black, who suffered a critical injury. But with that being said, though, it's still a pretty good roll, all things considered. And with Mycon's head being caved in by a length of chain from the orcs, that pretty much ends the battle report for this one with a victory for my buddy Iron Major. His very first victory in his last 4 games, so he actually had this one coming for a while. Lost 3 of his battle reports, but he managed to get this one, so I guess 4th time is the charm on that. So with that being said, we're going to go directly to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so now it's time for the post-game, and first of all, we're going to talk about the red faction played by my friend Scream of the Emo with his Genestealer Cults. Let's talk about exactly what happened to his gang at the end of this scenario. As for injury, unfortunately for me, almost every single one of his gangers actually went out of action in this battle report. Garrison Starn, Vinegar Creel, Macon, the Nightmare That Stalks, all those guys make full recoveries with no harm, no foul because they got out cold results. Holland the Shipbreaker also makes a full recovery as well because he had convalescence, so he's perfectly fine. As for Isak Black, he did suffer a critical injury, but they did a medical escort mission to Sinister Jeffrey, which is their gang's road dog. And because of that, when they rolled up for his last injury, they actually rolled out cold for him. So because of Isak Black makes a full recovery, so no harm, no foul there either. Unfortunately for Screaming the Emo, none of the members of his gang advance at this time, and from his 2 territories from his settlement, he was able to score 20 credits from that, and from his Underhive Shrine, he was also able to scavenge 20 credits from that territory as well. At the same time, though, he did manage to add +1 to the armor save of both Vinegar Creel as well as the Nightmare That Stalks, receiving blessings from their shrine by rolling 6s, so that's a bit of a positive. So with the trading post, for the 40 credits they got from their territories and combined with the 15 credits they have in their stash, they have 55 credits in total, and my friend Screaming decided to put all 55 credits directly into his stash just because he's not sure what he's going to do with that credits yet, because he's kind of scrambling right now to figure out what's going on with his gang. So in the end, he's able to score additional point reputation from the campaign week, bringing his grand total reputation to 3 points in total. His new record now is at 0 wins and 2 losses, and his new gang right now is at 2,165 points. So with that being said, let's talk about Iron Major and his gang, the Deff Watch, which is his gang of orcs. Let's go and talk about exactly what happened to them during the post-game. And because Iron Major's gang is unaligned, he does receive a couple of benefits. First of all, he gets the Hard as Nail benefits, which means he automatically gains 1 more point of reputation than normal every single time he wins a scenario. At the same time, he also has the special rule, no gods or masters, which means if his gang leader did not go out of action, he earns an additional D3 points of experience. So that part is pretty crazy. The first thing he has to do, of course, is to do the Dark Ritual, and for his gang, he randomly drew Garaf Face Spider to actually be the vassal for the Dark Ritual for Gork. So because of that, once again, they do pledge allegiance to the god of Gork, who is brutal yet cunning, and they do manage to gain that favor as well. And as added bonus, Garaf Face Spider also earns 6 additional experience points. And with the blessings of Gork, they do maintain that ability to reroll a fail to wound roll at any time during the battle once per turn. At the same time, Krogskull Draka also gets 1 additional attack in close combat, because that's the blessings of Gork for the leader. So first of all, starting with advancements, a couple of guys advanced in this gang. First of all, Krogskull Draka leveled up twice, I'm going to level 3, getting +1 to his willpower, as well as choosing the Nerves of Steel skill, increasing his credit value by 25 points in total. Grod Headcracker also leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his willpower, as well as +1 to Moo's movement, increasing his characteristics by 15 credits in total as well. Urlak the Maniac also leveled to level 1, earning +1 to his movement, and also increasing his value by 10 credits in total. As you can see, these guys are quite slow, so they want to use these credits in order to make themselves go faster. Zogwarp the World Killer also leveled to level 2 as well, increasing his willpower by 1, as well as his movement characteristic by 1. So now he's moving 5 with +7 willpower. He's also increased his credit value by 15 credits in total as well. Garaf Face Spider also leveled to level 2, getting +1 to his Blissa skill, and also increasing his credit rating by 20 credits in total. And Snick Rat Track Guy also leveled to level 1. He actually rolled up +1 to his movement allowance, so because he's a little bit faster, at the same time also increases his credit value by 10 credits as well. From their territories, from their settlement territory, they managed to recruit a hunter with the number 2 stats named the Spanner Boy, who's armed with mesh armor, as well as a last pistol. They also managed to drum 60 credits from that territory. From their wall outpost, they were able to secure 60 credits from that, 40 credits from their fungal sprawl, but none of them were able to actually get toxin traits put on their weapons. And finally, from their hab level, they earned 2 points of reputation from that, as well as drum out 20 credits for their gang. At the training post, they managed to score 180 credits from their territories, as well as 50 credits from the Price of Victory special rule that's in effect from this game, which basically means you earn D6 times 10 credits if you manage to win a scenario, which brings a grand total of 230 credits in total. With their 230 credits, they actually spent 75 credits for an arc rifle for the Spanner Boy. The reason why they're able to do so is because one of their territories actually takes away 25 credits for every weapon that's 100 credits or more. At the same time, they also spent 40 credits in order to purchase an infrasight for the Spanner Boy that goes directly on top of his arc rifle. For the rest of the training post, they spent 70 credits to purchase Fertile Goggles for Kazi the Loon, as well as for Mech Boy Mad Eye. They also spent 10 credits for Dum Dum Rounds for Mech Boy Mad Eye, as well as Kazi the Loon for their subguns. They also spent 20 credits for Manstopper Rounds for both Bodhi as well as Urzog for their auto pistols, and they also spent another 15 credits for Gutterforge Cloak for Mech Boy Mad Eye, increasing his armor save by 1, at the same time giving a 5 ward save against all environmental effects. For reputation, they earn 1 point reputation from this campaign week, as well as a bonus reputation point from their Hard as Nails special rule. From their Have level, they were able to secure 2 points reputation for that, and they also managed to score 2 points reputation for their scenario, giving a grand total of 11 points reputation in total. Their new record now is at 1 win and 3 losses, and the new gang rating now is at 3,270 points. So that's good news with you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good news for this week, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.